If you're scaling quickly, the only metric that's important is cash flow. You're overwhelmed and you're doing way too much and way more than you should be handling on your own. Banking relationship matters so much. Being able to have a banker that understands the vision for your company, because what you really need is you need somebody who's going to advocate for you.
Could you share a little bit about your personal journey in the construction industry?
Yeah, so high school student who didn't do well in school, didn't get good grades, barely graduated high school. Once I graduated, I started framing houses, wearing a tool belt every day, and I was really good at it. I was came naturally, easy to learn. Long story short, I'm 20 years old and I get a contract to frame 26 houses, and I've got 2 employees. So really excelled right out of the gate. Spent like the next 20 years wearing a tool belt, moved from single family into multifamily. Thought I had reached the pinnacle of my career, and that is 15 or 20 employees building large apartment buildings and keeping the money that's left over afterwards, right? 2014, I meet some guys from the mid-Atlantic who are professional framing contractors who have real office operations, you know, office staff, and I'd never seen anything like it. Difference between them and me is I was labor only, and they were selling material along with their labor. And so, spent a few years breaking into the supply chain here in Wisconsin, and sold my first turnkey labor and materials package between 2019 and 2022. Our company grew 1,126%. We were named 539th fastest growing company in America by Inc. magazine. So put away the tool belt, and here I am sitting in an office, mostly typing. We're the largest framing contractor in Wisconsin. We're the fastest growing building materials supplier.
Sounds like you've done many different roles there, Chris. So from the labour side right the way now to the typing side and everything in between. And we saw as well president of the National Framers Council and member of the Structural Building Components Association. How do you think being involved in all of these different areas and doing all those different roles has shaped you as a business owner?
It's being able to, our business has succeeded because I'm a lumber yard that thinks like a framer, right? And so I consider the guys in the field, and I consider how to make them more successful. If we can spend extra money on material to make the labor successful, we do it. Whereas our competitors who are material only don't, right? And then goes into sort of the association work. Being able to understand what my vendors are thinking, what their needs are, and value that on their behalf, building stronger partnerships, streamline services works really well. Associations are a great way to get to know those people, get to understand what they care about, right? The most expensive thing in construction is risk. Through strong partnerships and understanding sort of everybody under and up the supply chain from me helps me mitigate risk for them. I'm going to get better pricing than anyone else. I'm going to get better service than anyone else.
You've worn many hats. Could you talk about how your role as president of the National Framers Council, being a board member of the Structural Building Components Association, and you mentioned also being attentive to risk and some of the other factors. How do these roles shape you as a business owner?
I'm the past president of the National Framers Council, so I'm happy to have passed that along to a colleague. Just the ability to be around colleagues and people who are dealing with the same stuff that I am, and specific to my industry, has helped me make a lot better business decisions. The tricks, and you're a carpenter, you learn by screwing up. You mess something up, and you're not going to do it that way again. Once you're sort of a multi-million-dollar company, mistakes don't cost you just a few hours of production. They cost tens of thousands of dollars. And so being able to network and chat with those guys and learn from the mistakes they've made, the victories they've had, my time put into that networking pays back tenfold, right?
Absolutely. They say it's not what you know, right? It's who you know. So coming back to the risk side of things, because running any business, of course, there's risk, and within the construction sector, there's supply chain issues, there's labor shortages, which contributes to volatility. So how have you and how has DC Materials been able to manage in that one?
Yeah, how do we manage risk? there are lumber suppliers who place in the supply chain is just price risk mitigation. So I can get a price for a 2x4 right now, and that's different than a price for a 2x4 in June. I'll pay a little more for the 2x4 in June delivery when I need it. And so there's guys who buy bulk lumber, they put on a futures hedge contract, and they manage all that price risk for us. Just paying attention to the market, where it's going, holding physical inventory. On the labor side, we've got employees who are carpenters. We've got subcontractors who are carpenters. We try to take really good care of those subcontractors. We pay weekly. Um, we do a lot of the paperwork. They're really good framing contractors who are really good at putting up buildings, right? But they're not good at paperwork. They're not good at insurance. They're not good at bonding. They're not good at any of those things. So we sort of help them and help manage them through that kind of stuff. And we make it easy for them to go do what they're good at, is building high quality buildings really fast. So we help manage the business side for them through advice, connections, anything we can do. We help manage the cash flow side. And then in construction, you get a lot of gray areas where something may or may not be in a subcontractor scope of work. Usually we go into our pocket and we pay our subcontractors to take care of the things that pop up that might be gray areas, whether or not we're going to get paid from our general contractor customers. So it's those kind of things that keep ourselves happy. When they're not busy, we want to be the first one that they call, right? So we try to stand out in service. We think of them as part of our customer base as well, and we try to take care of them in that way.
You mentioned taking care of them as you would your customer base. With rapid growth come many challenges. You've touched on a few. Could you speak to how you maintain quality as you scale? What processes or systems have you put in place to scale effectively?
We're still navigating the system. We're a big bit. We're a large company in terms of revenue. We're a small company in terms of the way we operate. And so the way we still operate is our customers have a single point of contact for the project, and that's either myself or my business partner. And so, what again is it's unique for us and unique for Wisconsin is the guy doing the estimate for your project is the same guy who's going to be project managing and closing out that job. So it's a single. I deal with everything, right? My business partner follows his projects the entire way through. And because of that, it's really easy to ensure quality. It's really easy to make sure that sort of our principles and values are pushed through and our customers are getting what we promise they're going to get.
Coming back to, so you said that you're a large company in terms of revenue and a small company in terms of how you operate, which I definitely think is the right way around. That's a great balance to have there. In terms of the kind of operation side, what we've seen, so recently you've expanded your headquarters by 100,000 square feet. So what was it that motivated that decision, and how do you see that impacting your operations, your customer service, and the way you operate as that small business?
Yeah, it's overall positive. One of the things that's important to us is that we very much focus on the field operations and what it's going to take, again, to make the field guys successful. Carpenters are really good at building walls, putting up walls fast. They're not really good at counting how much subfloor they have at the end of the day and understanding how much they're going to need tomorrow. So be able to hold physical inventory and get that stuff to those guys within a few hours makes a huge difference. In terms of sort of the systems we've had to apply to sort of that growth, we haven't done a lot, and it's intentional. Systems can lend themselves, processes can lend itself really well. If you want to grow, growth is sort of the objective. You can put all kinds of systems in place, and guys who have to check boxes before they can deliver a stick of wood to a job site. Some of those things are necessary. Some of them are unnecessary and extremely cumbersome. So while I really fully understand the need to be able to control everything through processes, we've taken that very, very slowly and really been intentional about understanding what's necessary, what's unnecessary, what can the guys do that's already sort of in their workflow, and what do my managers, uh, what's not going to interrupt or be cumbersome to the ultimate goal, which is a fast quality delivery to our customers rather than growing and being scalable and easily scalable. Um, I don't want to be able to just hand this thing off someday to some guy because we've got enough systems in place that some middle manager with a business degree can operate it free and clear, right? Not saying anything negative about guys who go that route, people go that route, but for us, it's all about making sure the guys in the field have what they need when they need it.
Construction is often seen as a traditional industry. How do you balance the tried and true methods with the need to innovate to stay competitive?
I think on one side of the spectrum, you've got these old job superintendents who I do it this way because I've always done it this way. And on the other side of the spectrum, you've got these modular volumetric guys who are saying, you're all the problem and we're going to solve it. and sort of part of my work as a board member on the Structural Building Components Association has been sort of saying, hey, you know, we're not old. It's not necessarily this old way of doing things. It's a system that's been iterated over and over and over again for the last 100 years. And if we do things a certain way, there's probably a good reason for it. It's when you're running a construction business, you're absolutely going through a gauntlet of potential problems and you're constantly solving and you're constantly reiterating, right? And so the old school side, we've got a lot of experience with that. The new guys who there's a lot of venture capital, private equity backed ideas out there. I think it's the attitude. I think the attitude should be a little more, let's collaborate, let's see what we can learn from these guys. It's been lacking, but I've seen it moving lately as money in that sector sort of tightened up, and there's been some failures, some successes, a little more openness to looking to guys like me. On my side of things, I try to innovate in small incremental steps. So one of the things we've done in the last few years has been to grow relationships with developers. Right. In our market, I contract directly with general contractors and not developer contractors who sort of do their own thing. So I'm still reaching out to developers and I'm getting plan sets from 5 pages and helping guide them through value engineering all the way until it's a CD set. Sometimes I win those jobs from my general contractors, sometimes I don't. Building the relationship and being able to talk with the developer, architect, and engineer in an intelligent way and help get these things off on the right foot is good for everybody. It's good for the industry. It's good for the process. Again, mitigating risk early by involving sort of key trades very early.
Yeah, it's a big thing. So my background's in sales and training sales teams. And a big concept in sales is the notion of reciprocation. I'm not sure if that's a word. Humans are reciprocal creatures. You scratch my back, I scratch yours, generally speaking. And of course, you can do free work sometimes that doesn't come back round, but a lot of the times it will, even if you don't see it immediately. So I love that you're integrating that in what you do. When it comes to, so you said you have subcontractors and then you have staff as well. How would you describe your leadership style with your team?
Yeah, what we've built around us is sort of this culture of I don't micromanage. I don't like micromanagement. I give my employees a very broad stroke outline of what their responsibilities are, and then I tell them to go take care of those responsibilities. If there's a question that comes up, call me. But we put a lot of trust in these people, and we look for the kind of people who put that trust in. Right from the leadership side, I'm very much a vision caster. I like to paint big pictures of doing big things and get my people excited about what we're going to be doing. It's really easy when you're the market leader, growing like we have been. But getting those people on the team with those big visions, big ideas, and then sort of trusting to do their work. It's worked really well for us.
You mentioned some great lessons, I think, that could be applied across industries, not micromanaging, leading with vision, building or growing relationships with developers. I'm curious, going outside of construction, what are some overarching principles or lessons you've learned in the construction world that any SMB owner could apply to their own company?
I think the biggest obstacle is that moment where you've got to let go of control, and it comes with growth, right? And at some point, um, you're overwhelmed and you're doing way too much and way more than you should be handling on your own, and it's hurting your bottom line. And how do you let go of control, and how do you give that up, and how do you deal with that properly? I definitely had to do that, and in practice, the biggest thing for me was the bookkeeping. I learned bookkeeping, and I did all my own accounting and everything on that, and to be able to unload that onto an accountant, I got very lucky with the person I found. But moving the accounting side of it off my plate freed me up and really kind of set the pace, delegate other responsibilities beyond that. This idea of the idea that I used to have to control everything, that was not great. It was not helpful. There's a lot of stuff happening right now. Right now, I've got a 500,000 square feet of apartment buildings under construction, and I'm here in an office talking to you guys. I'm only able to do that because I let go and and let a lot of things happen that I know are going to happen well, and I know they're going to happen properly. They're not going to happen exactly perfectly the way that I want, but it's going well. Right? So letting go of that for any small business owner is a big hurdle, and be able to let go of it and do it well. Trusted people, sort of working through it to get there. That's what anybody, no matter what they're in, needs to be able to do if they want to grow.
I think you get to a point sometimes, don't you, where if you keep everything on your plate and you're doing everything, you get to a certain level of growth where that's just physically impossible at that point. And you have to, it forces you to have to let go.
And like you said, it's eventually it does not benefit the business.
So outside of that, and I think that's a great piece of advice for, like we said, any business owner. Are there any other KPIs or metrics that you would track or that you think are important to be aware of if you want to scale quickly?
Oh boy. Um, if you're scaling quickly, the only metric that's important is cash flow. Access to cash when you're scaling is so important. What do they say? It's revenue is vanity, net is sanity, and cash is king. We've had some moments where it's, when are we going to get paid next? When, I owe these guys a big pile of money, and they're all supposed to pay their guys a week from Friday. Where does that come from? Paying attention to that when you're scaling rapidly matters so much. Banking relationship matters so much. Being able to have a banker that understands the vision for your company. Most small businesses are banked with regional banks, and I think that's smart, because what you really need is you need somebody who's going to advocate for you, who's going to go in front of their board and be able to pitch your vision and what you've been doing and why you've been successful. I've spent the last 5 years paying a lot of close attention to cash flow, and then profitability is important, obviously vital, and watching that and making sure that you're not sacrificing that. In my opinion, cash flow is the most important.
Where do you see DC materials in the next few years? Are there any emerging trends that you're excited about in construction or beyond?
Yeah, I think talk about incremental innovation for us, more relationships with architects, engineers, and developers. There are some framing contractors in America that have had success bringing in, partnering closely with engineering firms where they're in the same office as the engineer of record on projects. I think that's a unique opportunity to really squeeze as much value as possible out of the large buildings we're building. We buy offsite components, so we buy pre-manufactured walls, roof trusses, floor trusses, and that's been really good for us. Part of the country where there are a lot of vendors for components, we're sort of adding on to that. We're pre-cutting a lot of the parts and pieces that a component manufacturer, traditional component manufacturer, doesn't provide. We're building stair cassettes at our facilities. We just crane our stairs into place. Fairly unique. Taking sort of that combination of having the labor and material in-house and maximizing that in the way that our competitors don't quite understand. So that, and then just sort of continuing to grow our footprint improve and strengthen our relationships with the customers we have already. That's where I see us continuing to lead. I think there's some interesting things that can be considered as far as closed cavity walls. I don't think we're there yet. Just sort of broader picture, you've got across America, you've got component manufacturers who are building open cavity wall systems and selling those and being very successful with that, right? You always want to have an advantage. And so what sort of advantage how can you innovate beyond that? Can we start thinking about what the mechanical trades might want in those walls, and are they willing to discount that if everything's drilled ahead of time? For example, somebody who wants some component manufacturer who's hungry and wants to grow market share using innovation to sort of bring things that your competitors are unwilling to do. It's a great opportunity to grow. So that's kind of the things that I see on the horizon.
That's exciting few things that you mentioned there to explore also on the using the horizon of what's possible in the industry, let alone just for DC materials.
It's an industry that's full of people who are making a good income, who are happy where they're at, and want to keep it that way. If you're able to move beyond that and think beyond that, you're going to have a huge edge.
Where can our listeners go to follow DC Materials and kind of keep up with your work or reach out for potential partnerships?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. I don't post a lot, but the stuff that I do post, I try to make sure it's quality and not just here's what I had for breakfast and learn about B2B sales. The National Framers Council recently launched a new magazine, a paper magazine called Framing Today. It's available in paper or digital, and you can find that at the National Framers Council website. That's easy Google search. I'm a writer for that. So this February, I've got an article about how to deal with and install wall panels successfully, which a lot of framers can use tips on. So those are the two ways to sort of get what I'm putting out into the world. The other way is just do a little typing and find my contact information, email or call me. I like being available to people. I like being available to business owners and framers. I like the idea of improving the industry that's treated me really, really well.
We'll put those links in the description as well. And thank you for your insights, Chris. You have a lot of experience and great success so far. Wish you even more in the future.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me as a guest.